Okay, this is lesson 2, and it's the 7th Mishnah, which starts right here, but we're going to start from the Gemara Amar Rabbi Yochanan right over here. Let's see. Make a line. Okay. And what we learned in the Mishnah was 3 cases. The first case was if 2 people were walking in the Rosh Hashanah and they banged into each other, which is normal. The second case is one was running and one was walking. And the third case is if they're both running. Now, whatever the case is, one of those cases, they're putter in all of those cases. That's what we learned. It says Peturin, Shnei Peturin. The Gemara said that our Mishnah doesn't go according to Isi ben Yehuda because Isi ben Yehuda holds that if someone is running, he would be chayev. So we're not sure right now what he would hold in the third case when they're both running, because the other person's also running. That may make him putter. But whatever the case is, in the second case, when one is running and one is walking, in that case, Isi would hold chayev, and our Mishnah holds putter. So there seems to be a machlekes Isi and our Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, let's start the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Halacha ki Isi ben Yehuda. This is a statement from Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like Isi ben Yehuda. Isi ben Yehuda is a Tana. We had him in the Brisa. We said, the Gemara says he has many other names. One of them is Yosef Abavli. And the halacha is like Isi ben Yehuda, which means that someone who's running is going to be chayev. Now the Gemara asks, Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, does Rabbi Yochanan really say so? V'Amar Rabbi Yochanan, but Rabbi Yochanan says halacha kistam Mishnah. The halacha is like an anonymous Mishnah. Stam means anonymous. Halacha is like an anonymous Mishnah. U'tinanin, we have an anonymous Mishnah that says Echad Ratz v'Echad Mahalach. This should sound familiar because it's our Mishnah. If one is running and one is walking, Oisha Yushneim Ratzimor, if 2 people are running, Pturim. So here we have one running and one walking as putter, and Isi says chayiv, and Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like Isi, and he says the halacha is like our Mishnah. Well, he didn't say actually the halacha is like our Mishnah, but just the fact that he said halacha kistam Mishnah, and our Mishnah is a stam Mishnah, that means he holds that halacha is like our Mishnah. Why does he say that the halacha is like a stam Mishnah? Because he says that the way Rebbe organized the Mishnayos is that if he wanted to say an opinion that wasn't the halacha, so he put in the person's name. But if he just said something plain without any name attached, then that must be the halacha. Okay, so right here is our question, because we seem to have a contradiction between 2 statements of Rabbi Yochanan. One statement is the halacha is like Isi, which means chayiv, and the other statement is the halacha is like a stam Mishnah, which means putter. So before we go further and do the answer, let's just take a look at the cases. I may have to shrink this to see it carefully. Okay. Here we have one person running on the top, one person is walking. I'm sorry for my art. I hope to get better at this, but it takes time. So Isi holds chayiv, and the Mishnah says pater. And Rabbi Yochanan says that the halacha, let's put, is like EC, and the halacha, let me do that again. Sorry, it's not working so well. Halacha is like stam Mishnah. So that we're seeing our question, because it seems to be contradiction, is he chayev or pater? Okay. Now in the terminology, we had one thing. It says Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, but did Rabbi. I left out that it's Rabbi Yochanan because it could be anyone, but this is a common terminology, Gemara terminology. Let's put that in. Gemara terminology. Okay. Did not Rabbi Yochanan say, which we have over here, V'ha'amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha kistam Mishnah, Utinan, and we said what he says. Okay, let's get back to our learning. So the Gemara says, and the answer, very simple answer, Masnisin be'erev Shabbos bein hashmashos. I don't know why there's a question mark there. It shouldn't be. I'll erase it. Let's erase that question mark. That's an answer. It's not a question. Okay, and the answer goes like this: that our Mishnah is talking about on Erev Shabbos. Now, even though we'll look back at our picture, even though Isi says chayev, but that's only let's put in chayev, we'll put in parentheses, chol, but Isi would still hold that pater be erev Shabbos, and is chayev only in the weekday. Okay, so we're all set now. And the reason why we're all set is because our Mishnah is talking about Erev Shabbos. So you see the Mishnah says Pater, and Isi also holds Pater on Erev Shabbos. So this person who's running over here, he knocks into him, and let's make a line over there. Maybe he hurt his hand, right? He hurt his hand, so it's bleeding. So the reason why he's Pater is because it's Erev Shabbos, and on Erev Shabbos a person does have permission to run. Okay. The Gemara is going to ask now. The Gemara is going to ask, Mimai. Mimai literally means from what? But it means, how do you know? From where do you know? But from what? From what is your source that our Mishnah is talking about Erev Shabbos? Maybe there's a machlokes, and maybe Rabbi Yochanan contradicted himself. So the Gemara says, no, we have a simple way of deducing that the Mishnah is talking about Erev Shabbos. It goes like this. Midiktani, since the Mishnah said in the third case, or if both of them are running, it's pater. Hasu lamali. Let's look in our terminology. That's a very common term. Hasu lamali. Why do I need this too? Or also. Same thing, right? Why do I need this as well? Or also. Why do you have to say this third case? Hashta echad. Hashta means now. Or like we said already. Hashta now. Echad ratz vechad mahalach is pater. If one is running and one is walking, it's pater. So shneim ratzim miboy. Do you have to tell me that if they're both running, you're pater? Okay, let's take a look at our case to get this clear. And the Gemara is saying like this. I only put the feet in, but it says in case number 2, when one is, the Mishnah says clearly that if one is running and one is walking, the one that's running is pater for the damages that he did. Then it says in case number 3 that if one is running and if they're both running, it also says pater. Now you have to recognize that if one is running, he's doing something abnormal. This person is doing something that's normal. And nevertheless, the one that's doing something abnormal is pater for the damages that he causes. So if this person is doing something abnormal, we already said in the second case he's pater. But now in the third case, he's doing something abnormal. So I would assume he's pater. But not only is he doing something abnormal, but the person that he's damaging is also doing something abnormal. So what? I should have thought that now maybe he's chayev because the other person's doing something that's abnormal. It would only make him more pater because why is this person running? Maybe it's his fault as well. For sure he's pater. So why do I need this third case? There's no chiddush in this third case when they're both running that he's pater. If in the second case he was pater when he was the only one that was running. So this third case must be telling me something else. Or the second case must be telling me something that's not as obvious as the third case being pater. But as it is right now, if they're both dealing with the weekday, that even though he's doing something abnormal, he's pater, and there's a machlekes between Isi and the Mishnah holds pater, then Shneim Ratzim is definitely pater, and that's the Gemara's question. The Gemara is saying, Shneim Ratzim mibai, do I need it? Does you have to tell me that you're pater? Okay, so it must be Ella Hachikama. Rather, this is what it's saying. Ella means rather. Hachikamar, so is what it's saying. Echad ratz vechad mahalech. If one is running and one is walking, which is the second case of our Mishnah, it's pater. Bamed dvarim amurim. When do we say it's pater? That's Be'erev Shabbos bein hashmashos. Exactly how we answered. How it's not going to be a machlekes between the Mishnah and Isi, and Rabbi Yochanan was right in saying the halach is like both because it's dealing with Erev Shabbos bein hashmashos. Aval b'chol, but if it's a weekday, echad ratz vechad mahalech, the din is chayev. So our Mishnah that says pater, go up a drop to look at it. Echad ratz v'echad mahalech. It says it's pater in the end. It says pater. That's dealing with on Shabbos. But if it's a weekday, the din would be different. It would be chayev. However, shneim ratzim. But if they're both running, afilu b'chol, even on a weekday, piturim. It's going to be pater. Now we have a chiddush for the last case of the Mishnah. So if we look at this again, zoom out. We can look at both of them. We have this case up here, but this is talking about, in our answer, this is talking about Erev Shabbos is pater. And this is pater even b'chol, which means on a weekday. So here we have a chiddush. He's doing something abnormal, and he's pater. That's because it's Erev Shabbos. He has the rights to do that. Here, they're both doing something abnormal, and he's pater. But that's because even though he doesn't have the rights to do it, he's pater because it's in a weekday. The reason why he's pater is because this person, the nizik, the victim, is also doing something abnormal, so he's also pishaya, and that's what makes him pater. So there's actually a big chiddush in the seifa, in the third case, that he's pater not because he had the rights, but because he did something wrong. The nizik did something wrong. Okay, we'll stop here.